Let's wait a couple of minutes for the remaining people to join. We do have a large number of registrations, so let's give another minute for others to join and then we'll get started. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Srijit, and I'm the Chief Delivery Officer at Benix, a partner of Tableau. Thank you all for joining this event. While the current situation is forcing us to keep physical distances, the technology is bringing us all together. So this is one such event where we can all come together and learn. I understand that most of you are Tableau users. See, Tableau has been a true leader in all its sense, and Tableau always understands the market requirements and market needs, even before what the market realizes what they need. While the core of the tool remains the same, there have been new features that are being added in every release, which makes it easier for us to use as well as make the tool more powerful. I'll give you a brief about how I started the Tableau journey, and we obviously have a lot to learn from the speakers today. I've been using Tableau since 2012, and I've actually seen this tool evolve in the past 8 years. My first project was for a Fortune 100 client. And thus we were trying to understand the data. And this was transaction data and which run into millions of records. And obviously the huge volume of transaction data was making it very difficult to analyze this. And what they were trying to do was to find a pattern in the data. They understood that there is an issue that needs to be fixed, but for that they had to identify the pattern. And they've been trying to solve this issue for close to a month before they reached out to my team. We all know how powerful visual analytics is. And then using the power of Tableau, we were able to solve that within 2 days. And it was an incredible feat, and the report and the findings went all the way to the CEO, as well as it was part of the AGM meeting of that year. So I was certain after this first instance itself that the tool is very powerful, and obviously there was no looking back. So I understand that most of your situations or most of your stories are also very similar to mine, where you realize the power of the tool of visual analytics and started using this. Today, we're going to learn something similar, and where someone has realized the power of visual analytics and Tableau to understand their data and a use case where they have made decisions based on that. So with us, the first speaker would be Bobby Krishna Thulasi. He's a senior food specialist at Dubai Municipality. And he will share his experience of using Tableau in his business. And then because of the specific topic and being a food specialist, it's a unique title. So I believe it is going to be very interesting for us. And we also have Zeinab with us. Zeinab is the solutions engineer at Tableau, and she would help us understand some of the latest features of Tableau, and that makes this tool even more powerful than it used to be. And we are all aware, being users of Tableau, we would be following the recent developments in Tableau. However, who better to learn from than Tableau themselves? Bobby and Zeinab, thank you for joining us to share your experiences and knowledge with us. We shall have half an hour for each of you to present. And for the participants, while they present, if you have any questions, please note it down. There's a Q&A session on the chat window. It's not on the chat, but there's next to it, there is Q&A session. Please note down your questions, and right after this session, we shall have a session for answering all the questions that you might have. All right, so we'll get started. On behalf of Tableau User Group Dubai, I welcome you all to this meetup, and let's learn something new today. Bobby, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Srijit. Let me try and get the screen up. Srijit, can you confirm you can see the screen properly?
Yes, we can.
Right. All right, folks. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's great to be in this group. And it's my first time trying to say something about food safety to a group that doesn't belong to the public health arena. It's the first time that I'm venturing out into a group that I'm not familiar with. I'm really sorry if you're a techie. I'm a food safety person, and my familiarity with data is pretty low. So if I make a mistake in using some of the terms, or I use words interchangeably, please forgive me. But otherwise, I will try to make it as entertaining as possible. And I'm sure that you want to continue eating food after this session. So I just don't want to scare you more. But some of these facts would look scary, but it's not something that you need to worry about. Some of the data that I use are real, so just want to make sure that it's not used to victimize anyone. Just wanted to show how useful it is to you. And with that note, I want to start my presentation. I'm working for the food safety department, and in my department, the core business is keeping food safe for everyone. Our department also looks at the imported foods and whatever is sold in the market. We look at labeling, we look at nutrition aspects of food, we look at food related trainings, we look at pest management, a whole lot of things. So though it is just called food safety, it's a lot more than real food related aspects. We also look at all food related services too. But it's no introduction when it comes to food safety. I mean, we know that it's a great hub for eating and trying out different recipes, all in a small village. We call it like a food village. And with the kind of events that we have, the kind of entertainment options that we have, I must say pre-COVID, all these facilities are centered around meeting different people in front of food. And I don't think we have a single event that doesn't go without a fabulous thing, a fabulous piece of meal on your table. So it's an integral part of the culture here, and I think it's an integral part of the culture worldwide. And that also puts food safety in the forefront. And we cannot take a chance at any point of time when it comes to food safety. we usually get 15 million visitors, and with the expo on, we expect a lot more that in the coming years. So next year is going to be a big year for us. And at the back end of all this is are a few people who are always concerned about what's going on around the world. And when something like this comes up in the news or in the media, you wouldn't really relate it to you. You might say that, all right, Romain Lettuce outbreak in New York or in the US or in Canada doesn't really hit you. But as food safety folks, we know that we are in a very interconnected world today. And anything that happens anywhere in the world would have a direct impact on your food supply chain. And the COVID period is a classic example of how food is in a classic example of how things can change with a small incident somewhere in a remote corner of a world, and how it impacts everything that we are doing. So if you put the coronavirus in perspective of food safety, you know that any bacterial infection anywhere in the world can affect the entire global food supply chain. So it's very important that we have a global view of things. And when an outbreak happens in the US, we need to know whether that outbreak is likely to happen here too. Are we a part of that system? Are these lettuce or whatever the spinaches or whatever the meat is sold in that particular place found in our supermarkets? And that kind of data is currently available because we know every food that comes into the country. We know every label that's in the market. We know where it's coming from. And if something happens anywhere else, we need to be able to pick that up, and we need to be taking that out of the market so that you don't encounter that food when you're shopping. And the previous outbreaks have told us a lot of lessons. So when we had the E. coli outbreak in 2011, that was really, really striking. The impact was global. And, literally every country in Europe was affected, where every country in the US, every country in the Americas were affected, and also part of Europe and Asia. And it was a very small product, sprouts from the fenugreek sprouts that came in from Egypt all the way to Germany, and from Germany to all the way across the Europe. And the spread and the impact of this cannot be measured today unless we have powerful visualization tools. We need those data. We need to be able to see the data very clearly so that we know what is the spread, and we know also where it is going. And that kind of a prediction is required to ensure food safety. If you look at a simple food chain, it looks very simple. When you see a Norwegian salmon on your plate, you don't realize that it has gone through like hundreds of transactions before it came to your plate. And each one of those generates a set of data. So from the time it was caught to the transportation, to the storage, to the shipment, it generates thousands of data points. And all these are scattered across the systems that we use at the point of import or at the point of distribution. And it could be some with the government, some with the private sector, some with the laboratory. And if you have a food problem, we need to go and look at every document that is connected and find out where things went wrong. And whatever happened after that has to be verified as well. So it's not an easy process. And without systems, we cannot really say whether the food is safe or not. So a lot of people think that food safety is something that an inspector goes and checks in the restaurant and says, oh, this food is safe or not. Or it is something that we deal with from an inspection perspective. Food safety is not actually built with inspection. Food safety is built with a whole lot of system. We call it a management system. And that system comprises of several pieces, which includes laboratory testing, certifications, supply management, pest management, good design and layout, transportation vehicle safety, training of employees, equipment design, cleaning, disinfection, process checks, and a whole lot of processes are involved. And you can imagine the amount of data that you would generate from these kind of setup. And if you look at the traditional approaches that we still use for food safety, it's really shocking. I mean, sometimes when you go and look at an outbreak, you say that, where are these records which tell you that a product has been inspected, and you get a sheet of paper which explains how the inspection was carried out, and it's never on a digitalized format in many countries today. And that's one reason why outbreaks cannot be traced back. So when you look at the United States and you think that technologically they're really, really forward, but when an outbreak of E. coli happens, it takes 2 months to find out which is the farm that caused the outbreak. And that's really because most of the data is still not digitalized, and technology use in food safety and public health as such is extremely low when you compare it to automobile industry. And that makes it very difficult for us to look at data and see data-driven decisions are made in our daily work. So Dubai, for instance, has changed a lot of these. And this is a classic slide that I used. And if you look at how much work we were doing in 2009 versus 2019 in the food business, you wouldn't see anything. Still, people drive records on papers, and everyone thinks that it is looking at these papers from these papers that you get credible information. And there's no drive to change from a paper to a digital system. And Dubai took the initiative to move forward. And what we did in late 90s and early 2000s is start off with digital inspections. And today we have a cutting edge platform called FoodWatch, which looks at every piece of food data. And we've literally managed to digitalize every transaction that I was talking about earlier, from farm to fork into a centralized database system that we have. And I'm scared to use the word centralized, but just trust that it's hosted by us because it's something that the municipality owns. And the data is like distributed across different services and different users, but it's all kept in a way that we can analyze it and we can use it for decision making, and especially forecasting what we want to achieve. So if you look at the systems that are used in Dubai Municipality, a classic system is food inspection. We call it Smart Inspection Platform. And this has been in place since last 3 years. But if you look at our historical data, we automated most of these inspections into a digital format in 2003. And ever since, we had multiple systems coming in, and currently we are using a very advanced platform for inspections. We also have a lot of services that we offer. So anytime you apply for a government permit for starting a restaurant, getting a training center approved, or approving a chemical, all these services are offered by the municipality. And we've got a huge data set linked to all the services that we offer. We also have a FoodWatch platform that is maintained by every food business, wherein the managers of the food business or whoever is running the business would enter a set of data, and certain requirements are done daily when they carry out checks. So for instance, during the COVID period, every food business is required to do a cleaning and disinfection in the morning, and every half an hour they have to clean the high contact surfaces, and that data has to be confirmed through the platform. So they use an app to confirm that. So that's the data that we have from FoodWatch. We also have food import and re-export data. That's the data that we get from our import points, wherever the ports are in Jebel Ali and in Port Rashid. And whatever food that comes in is digitalized, and it goes through a very elaborate process. And we got this data from 2007, so it's quite rich. We also have a laboratory information system that's been working since 2007, which tells us what products have been tested and what has failed, where did it come from, and so on. And in a comprehensive way, if you look at the data, we can say that about 90% of the data that we have are completely in digital format, and that puts Dubai right ahead in the game. And we also can locate food businesses today digitally. So here's a map of restaurants that sell shawarma in Dubai. And if you want to start a restaurant, probably this is the map that you want to look at. So if you want to start a restaurant that serves shawarma, I would really look at our map. And here we don't look at it from a Zomato's perspective or Uber's perspective. What we look at is from a food safety perspective. It's our interest, or the inspector's interest, to know where are these restaurants which serve shawarma, so that we can then devise our inspections in a way that these restaurants are inspected more frequently. So the same data could be used by someone else for finding out where is the best location to put my shawarma shop. I don't want to start in a place where there are plenty of shawarma restaurants, and I can look up at a place where there are very less shawarma places. So I mean, the data could be used in different ways, but for us, it's for a public health purpose. It also tells you where chicken would be consumed, and that also changes the way that we are inspecting. We also managed to digitalize every food item. So every food that is sold in Dubai in a prepackaged format is digitalized, and we have the nutrient requirements. We've got the ingredient information, everything digitalized. In the future, we're also looking at food service industry and trying to get that also digitalized. Every person in Dubai has a digital identity. So you know that Emirates ID is available with everyone. But in FoodWatch, we also digitalize the identity of the person who's working in the kitchen, including a food handler, a manager, or a cleaner. Everyone has a digital identity, and a manager of a person of a business, we call them person in charge, enters a certain data every day to confirm that they've done the checks and they've taken any action that's required when checks indicate a problem. So if they find in the morning there was a pest problem in the facility, they would report the incident on the platform, and that notification goes to the pest contract department. So all these things are digitalized today, and the adoption has been really, really good, and most businesses are on board. What you're seeing here is a visualization from Tableau, and this is something that we work with the Tableau team on since I think the last two years, and we kept optimizing it with their support. And what you're seeing here is the violation map of Dubai, and we're looking at the magnitude of violations in different locations. I'm sorry, I'm not able to directly connect it to our platform. I really wanted to show it live, but in this map on the left corner, what you're seeing here is the violation density, and we can see different types of violation. I can choose where do I find pest violations, or where do I find cleaning related violations. And I can also see how big that problem is in that area. And that helps us to identify how many inspectors are required to solve that, or maybe we need training materials to solve that problem out. So if I see that cleaning is a problem in a particular area, we can hold, pre-COVID, we would do on-site meetings. So we would schedule a meeting in that area to call in all the restaurants and then deliver a training for them. Now we are doing mostly online training, so still that data is really, really valuable for us. It also helps us to identify whether problems are spreading. For instance, if I have a pest problem in one particular location, we see whether that's spreading across a certain area or not. And then we can take mitigation measures depending on how things spread over season or over the months. We also have inspection violations recorded, so we know which districts have more violations. And also we can see which inspector is likely to find more violations, and we look at the corrective action plans as well. And we also can see whether the inspection violations are stagnant throughout the year, are they changing, and so on. So it's a very, very valuable data for us for inspections. And problems don't finish when we identify a problem. In a food facility, we also need to make sure that they are addressed in different way. We also look at the density of violations. Here again, it gives you an intensity map of how many violations are there in a particular area in Dubai. And that kind of helps us to manage our workforce. And also, when you take specific violation and do this, it also gives others who are in the meeting a good sense of purpose. So when we meet the training centers, or when we sit with the pest contractors who are working across Dubai, we've got around 200 pest contractors working around Dubai. And when we sit with them, we tell them that, okay, this is the area that we have a lot of problems, and we cannot find associations. For instance, if there are pest problems, we also look for associated violations, like do we have cleaning problems in this area, or do we have waste bins across this area that are contributing to the pests. So there are different ways of looking at this data on Tableau. We also use the Tableau a lot for using for finding tests and results. So it's connected with our laboratory sampling tool. Here we can look at what are the common tests that we do for certain foods. Do we need to increase the tests for certain parameters, certain products? How these tests faring across countries. So do we have to test products coming from certain country? On your right, you can see failure rates, and you can see that certain countries have a very high failure rate and certain countries have a low failure rate. So you can look at that, what is the failure rate from a country based on a product, and can take product-based decisions. So it's also a lot predictive, because you can see what is likely to fail, and we can test those products more often before we release the product. So it's taking historical data and using it for future decision making. What you see here is a map of cockroaches, flies, and rodents in Dubai, and you can see the density of violation. Also, you can see how critical that violation is from the map here. You can say that a violation is critical, or is it really minor? So you can see certain areas are very dense in Dera, or in certain areas of the probably towards Barsha. So some of these areas are really, really dense, and that data is very, very crucial for us when we look at preventive tools. So we look at also causative information, say where do these pests come from, and where do we track these movements. And this is probably the simplest of examples to look at the data. In fact, we had a meeting with the pest contract companies yesterday, looking at a drill down of each of these aspects. This is something that I created with the Tableau team a couple of months ago, looking at what we call as the pest map of Dubai. It's really beautiful. And I wish I could have the icons of cockroaches and rats on it so that it gives them a better picture. But then, the colors and schemes are really useful for us to see what are the problems. And it makes a lot of difference for people who listen to these things. They're bored with presentations before where we put the data on an Excel sheet and show the number of times the problem have been sorted in a place. But the moment you put it on a map, it's pretty much like the Google Maps and looking at the traffic. So they get an image which they cannot forget. So it's been really useful for the users. This is a map of how many people are using our daily check-in platform, daily check-in app. Here you can see the trend starting from January when the system was not automated, and it slowly started increasing it. And this is a daily thing that we do. We look at how many people are using the platform, and you can see trends like this. So pre-COVID, in January, there were a lot of users, and we see a downfall here when the businesses started closing during COVID, and then you can see that businesses are opening again. So it also tells you the economic trend of Dubai and how much people are coming back into business when it comes to food. And it's pretty much the same trend for everything else. So it does also have an economic value when you look at non-food safety or non-public health related issues. We also track number of people who are getting sick and number of people who are reporting incidents, for instance, complaints, and where are those complaints coming from? And often these becomes a very good indicator. So for instance, an inspector would find a problem in a restaurant in January, but a customer who is living, or a consumer who is living in the same building would have had a cockroach infestation problem 3 months ago, and they would have already reported it, that this building has a problem. So some of these incidents are leading indicators of what the problem is. And before it really gets hard, we can find out. So that's really an important aspect of using data to drive decision making. Currently, we're in the process of digitalizing more data. So we're looking at distribution chains of foods. And within 2 years, we probably would have plenty of data in our plate to look at product identity. So when you pick up a product in the shelf, you'll be able to trace it back to the farm where it's produced. So here again, there's a huge input of data that's happening at every point, and it needs powerful data visualization tool to look at this. And also, when you're building teams, it's really crucial that you sit with the team and put this on the screen. It makes a lot of difference when you get those discussions going. And I myself have seen this happening over the last few years. And post Tableau, meetings have been so effortless. I don't even print slides anymore. I just take the data, take it live, and ask the question to the floor. Tell me what you want to know, and then I show them the answers live. Right. So with this note, I want to thank you for listening. And what I would say is we are in the process of learning more, and sorry, we are in the process of what happened to my slide. So we're in the process of this change, and we hope that in the next few years these would have significant difference in the way we are looking at our work and public health as such. And we've been in the forefront of these things, and Dubai itself is placing it as a very great model for the world to look at. And in most of the meetings that I go today, when we show this kind of data, people get really impressed. And I think it gives a good perspective of what is really required from the team that's listening to your work, and I think decision making has really been enhanced after we started looking at data this way. Right. So I think we have some few minutes for questions, Srijit, if there are.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation, Bobby. It was very interesting to see how you're using data, and more than that, on why you're using it. It's a very interesting field as well. I'm sure your work is very interesting in general. Um, Bobby, I believe you are still sharing the screen. You can choose to stop screen share. All right. Um, do we have, we have a couple of questions in the Q&A session. This is regarding the technical details. We'll take a minute to just answer those. And then if you have any further questions to Bobby, we would be more than happy to answer that as well. So let me just quickly go through the question. It is regarding the data alerts, data-driven alerts, and the question is whether we can set up data alerts on Tableau, especially when it is a tabular graph. So all of you would know that visual data-driven alerts or Viz alerts is something that is inbuilt in Tableau. And this, for those who are not aware of it, this can be done based on the axis, based on a threshold. So if you have a chart, which is any kind of chart which has got an axis, you can provide a threshold, a threshold value above or below which it will it will send an email. Now, in this case, the question is specifically regarding whether we can use it for a tabular view. From the tabular view itself, it is not possible, which Zeinab has answered already. However, you can do one thing using the features of Tableau, which is like a floating sheet. We can create a separate sheet with the same information as an axis, set up the alert, and then simply hide it by making it smaller, floating, and maybe even outside of the window that you see. So the purpose will, it will definitely work. Okay. I do not see any other questions so far. Thank you, Bobby, for this wonderful presentation. And we hope to see you soon with maybe, if possible, with something live as well. So it would be very interesting, maybe in the next meetings. So
and I
this is
also
good.
want to, I also want to let the audience know that if they're interested to contribute to public health data, if someone is interested in working with us, like in sharing what they're doing in the similar areas, maybe we could learn from them. So I really look forward to any input from the participants in enhancing whatever we can do. It'd be really useful for us to take things forward.
Wonderful. That would be great. All right. We do have some more time for Q&A, but we will move on to the next session. With us is Zeinab, who has joined us from Tableau, and she has dialed in from London now. Because this is a virtual session, we can afford to have people like the solutions engineer from Tableau themselves. So it is great. Zeinab, thank you for joining. And she's going to present the new features of Tableau. Let's see some of those. Zeinab, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Let me know if you can see it. Can you guys see? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see now.
Perfect. First off, thank you so much, guys, for joining us here on an overview as well as a demo of the newest features in Tableau. As a way of introduction, my name is Zeinab, and I'm a solution engineer here at Tableau. I've been working there for about a year now, and previously I was a customer of Tableau's, which is where my love for it basically began. To tell you a little bit more about myself, 1 second. So I'm originally from Egypt. I guess you can see that from the picture on the left. And I'm currently based in the most exciting city in the world, which is London. I've been living here for about 5 years and absolutely loving it. For the agenda, I've divided the what's new features in categories. So we'll look at visual analytics, web and mobile, IT and governments. And I'll go over a quick overview of these features, and then we'll see them in action. First off, one of the biggest additions this year is relationships. Relationships is Tableau's new data model. It provides you with a much more flexible way of combining and working with joined data. I'll get into a lot more detail about relationships because it's one of the biggest additions we've added since 2020.2. Yeah. Next is set control. So we've added the ability to dynamically change the members of a set through like a quick filter action. So you know how you use filters for, quick filters for filtering your data. You can do the same with set actions. Set actions are super powerful, and I'll show you an example of what you can do with it. We've also improved set actions. So in the past, you would be able to select marks using the control key or the command key if you're using a Mac. Now we're allowing you to incrementally add or remove values by using the tooltip. Explain data. Explain data and the next feature are two of my favorite features in Tableau. To give you a quick overview of what explain data is. So it's like having a data scientist in your back pocket. It uses machine learning and artificial intelligence to help you explain points about your data. We'll see it in action, but as an overview, it analyzes your data to explain the reasoning behind certain points, whether they're outliers or behaving normally. It depends on the point that you're selecting. The improvement that we've added this year is you can choose the dimensions and measures you want to be modeled in your machine learning model. Next is Ask Data. Ask Data uses natural language processing to help you answer questions about your data. If you haven't used it, I highly recommend you use it. You can just type a question in plain English in your data source and you get an answer, visually, obviously. It's super helpful, and Explain Data and Ask Data are two features that are truly self-service analytics. They lower the barrier for anyone who's not technical to be able to be a lot more analytical with their data. And for the improvements for Ask Data, we've added the ability to curate template questions and your ability to have customized suggestions. Viz Animations. Everyone loves animations. So as you can see here, Viz Animations allow you to see your data in action to be able to tell much more powerful data stories. Similar to Hans Rosling's presentations, if anyone has seen them. Next, for web and mobile, we've added metrics this year. So a very easy way to describe metrics is that if your dashboards are a newspaper, metrics are the headlines. So they look just like this. You choose any point in your data source and you can create a KPI from it. And it's it takes little real estate space. So you can use it on mobile as well. And you can have a quick overview of your most important KPIs that way. You can also reorder your favorites in Tableau Online or Tableau Server. Now, before we get into the demo of relationships, let's take a closer look at it. With relationships, we're making it much easier to perform analysis across multiple tables of data. Historically, you would combine your tables of data. So this is historically, you would combine your tables of data to produce a flat file and then analyze it. But now with relationships, we're merging these into one. So you can combine and analyze your data simultaneously. You don't have to decide on the type of join when you're analyzing your data, and we'll see in a second why this is very beneficial. With relationships, you get flexible, automatic, and contextual data models. You spend way less time in data prep. You can have a lot more analysis scenario per data source, and there's greater trust in your results. Previously, with pre-aggregated data, detail would be lost, limiting the variety of purposes a data source can serve. Now, a data source can preserve all the detail for all its source table, which enables users to answer unanticipated questions, which is something that you do not get when you join your data and produce a flat file. This is a quote: let your data be single with relationships and you will not have any trade-offs. Just a note, we haven't removed your ability to join your data. You can still do that, but we usually recommend that you try using relationships first. Now we'll jump into a demo. So here we have a data source using a normal join in Tableau. So this is population data in 2020 using data source from 2020.1. And if I drag in London's population, it's 8.8 million. Suppose now I want to analyze crimes per capita as well. And I know that we have a crimes table in this data source. So if I go here, and to do the normal join, I just need to double click, drag in crimes, and I'll join it. Now what's happening is that population is being, joins produce a single flat table. So it's copying the area population into each individual crime record. As you can see here, I can already see issues with the join. It's duplicating the data. And if we go over here to see the number, it's 168 million. Which is obviously not the number that we are supposed to see. Relationships help you solve this problem. Let's combine this table using relationships. Okay, what I'll do now is do the same thing, drag in crimes, and I can see like this noodle, which is our relationship model. On this data source, the population will automatically aggregate correctly. What I'm telling Tableau is, I want to relate these two data sources using the area code. But only when it comes to time of analysis, I need you to perform the join. And Tableau determines whether it's a left join, right join, outer join, depending on the context of your question. So if you go here, and drag in the population. Yep, it aggregates correctly. Because in this case, Tableau is only querying the population table, which is what I need. With relationships, you can incrementally construct your data source because unlike joins, adding in a relationship will never change your existing analysis. And you can create rich data sources like this Area 360 data model. Let's have a look at this model. For example, in this model, property sales and crimes cannot be directly joined because there's nothing in common between them. However, they can be indirectly related through the area that they belong to. This is super powerful because it unlocks a lot of different new analysis without having you to spend so much time on data preparation. So let's look at an example. So this is an example of property prices versus crimes per capita. This one is using joins and this one is using relationships. So these are two identical vizes built on a single data source. One is pre and post relationship. This visualization shows us that for each local authority, the average property price versus crime per capita. Crime is more common in wealthy areas. We can clearly see that with Westminster and Kensington and Chelsea having the highest crime rates. If I look at the underlying data, remember that this is not using relationships, this specific view. I see that on the pre-aggregated data source, the summary data is the underlying data. There's only one record per area. All the crime data is rolled up into the single count. And from properties, there is a pre-computed price measure for every level of detail we want to analyze. This is a highly inflexible data source, built specifically for this type of analysis. Now, let's say I look at this data using relationships. Here, we've preserved all the raw detail. We've preserved all the raw detail for each individual crime. And we also have all the detail for each property sale. So we don't lose any level of detail. And I can perform a lot more advanced analysis by filtering on different crime types, which I wouldn't have been able to do on this data source. Now, with relationships, you're able to perform, it makes analytics much more accessible to more users, allowing them to work in an uninterrupted flow. Now, let's look at set actions. They've been around for about a year now, and in 2020.2, they got even better. As a refresher, I'm going to select categories. And as you can see on the right, it auto-populates the bar charts on the right to help me analyze how much of the contribution for each of these categories to profit, sales, quantity, and number of records. Let's say I accidentally forget to hold my command key or my control key and I select furnishings. I lose all of my selections. However, in 2020.2, we've added an improvement. You can now incrementally add and remove categories from a set using the tooltip. We've also added a set control, so you can even have a lot more control when you're selecting your marks. So now let's look at explain data. Explain data uses machine learning and artificial intelligence to help you explain points about your data. The easiest way to explain it is to explain data is to just show it to you. So here we have data from student survey. It's actually a survey that was taken in Portugal to ask students about their grades and what are the factors to determine the factors that impact these student grades. We have here different dimensions, for example, amount of free time, attended nursery school, family size, father's education, so many different dimensions. And for me to try and figure out which factors impact student grades, I would, before data, I would have to go through each of these and try to analyze them with the different grades to figure out an explanation. But explain data makes this very easy. If I click on a point, I see this light bulb. I'm just going to click on it. So this is your explain data. What explain data is doing in the background, it's analyzing all of these different dimensions and measures and using statistical models to try and come up with explanations and find the correlations between the data. It's honestly like having a data scientist at a click of a button. It guides you through your analysis. So here I understand that the passing grade in this specific country was less than 70%. So anyone who got less than 70% failed. And I'm trying to figure out imagine I was the owner of or I worked at the Ministry of Education, and I'm trying to figure out what are the factors that cause students to fail. Tableau ranks the different factors by significance. I can see here that extracurricular activity is the highest factor. And it's telling me that the selected mark is entirely made of records with the category extracurricular activities equals no. It's also giving me a quick graph, which I can use to even analyze it more. So I can open it as a new worksheet, telling me that these students are entirely made up of students who did not do any extracurricular activities. This is super interesting. It's telling me that students who do not do extracurricular activities do not perform so well. Another factor is mother's education. So it's telling me here that this mark has an interesting distribution of values for mother's education. These students, the ones in blue, are entirely made up of students with mother's education either secondary education or 5th to 9th grade. None of them had higher education. Also, they did not have any support for extra paid classes.
Hey, Zainab,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We cannot see the other screen, the
Oh.
Explain Data tab.
Oh. Let me try now. Ah. Okay, so now?
Yes.
1 second. Now you can see that?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, so sorry guys. Thank you. So this is what explain data looks like. Here for extracurricular activities, it's set to no. So these students, the selected mark is entirely made of records with the category extracurricular activities equals no. The mother's education was either secondary education or 5th to 9th grade, and they did not have any support for extra paid classes. Now, this has been, explain data has been around for about a year now. The improvement that we've added in 2020.2 is that you can even choose the specific fields you want to include in your model. So let's say I know for a fact that parent cohabitation or reason of chosen school, as well as student ID, should not impact my analysis. I can remove them so that now I remodel my model. And let's see if it comes up with any additional analysis. It did not, because it originally did not take into account these these fields. But let's say I don't want to include mother's education, nor support for extra paid classes. Now it's remodeling without these fields, so it's excluding them from their machine learning model. And we have here that support family is another factor, and number of records is another factor. Okay, now you can't see my screen, right?
Yeah, we cannot.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Perfect. Now let's look at animations. Animations have been around since 2020.2, if I'm not mistaken. And it's super powerful because it uses our pre-attentive attributes. I'll show you an example right now. If you look on the table at the graph on the right-hand side, this one, this has our profits by category as a trend line. Now, let's say I filter on Washington. You can easily notice that technology has outperformed in the month of March for the state of Washington. Animations allow you to use your pre-attentive attributes so you can get to the insights much faster and you do not miss any changes in your data. So I highly recommend that you turn on animations for your data sources. Okay. I'm just gonna go into an explanation of metrics really quickly. So, 1 second. Okay, what can you see now? Can you see my Tableau online
Yes.
deployment? Perfect. Okay. So here I've got my online deployment and I've gone to my favorites. So this is Explore. This is my favorites. And these are the content types, whether they're projects, different data sources, metrics that I've added as favorites. One feature that we've introduced in 2020.2 is that you can reorder your favorites, so your most important favorites can be at the top. Let's look at this specific sheet. This is built on the Superstore dataset, and here we have transactions over time. I can quickly see that this graph is behaving very erratically, and I want to make sure that I keep track of this graph. I can easily click on this point, for example, and click on metrics, which will be found here, and create a metric. This is basically creating a KPI for me to be on top of, and they're super useful to see on mobile as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and name this metric technology sales over time KPI Dubai. Okay, and I can add even a description, change the location of the project that it's in, and just click create. I can go to the metric. So now whenever this data is updated, I can easily keep track of the specific KPI. I'm gonna go favorite it so that when I go to my favorites, it's easily accessible. Now, another feature, and this is the last feature that I want to show you, is Ask Data. So here, I'm just going to go into a data source, and this is Sample Superstore. This has transactional data of different things that we've sold in this fictional superstore. What Ask Data is, it uses natural language processing to help answer questions about your data visually. So here on the left-hand side, I can see my different fields. Even before asking questions of the data, I can quickly come to conclusions about it. So here, I can see that city takes the domain values New York, LA, Philadelphia, and San Fran, with 531 unique values. I can see that manufacturers takes on 183 unique values, and I've also added a synonym to it. Region, for example, has the values West, East, Central, South, and I've also added synonyms of it. The way to add synonyms, you just go on here and add a new synonym. Position, for example. Okay. Now, we've also added durability. Can you see my screen with my synonyms, or is it not shown?
No, we can see that.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
We've also added the ability to add synonyms to your values as well. The benefit of that is that I can ask questions using the synonyms, and I can curate the data source to help my colleagues ask their own questions. We've also added your ability to ask and customize questions. So let's say I know for sure, I'm going to show you what Ask Data looks like, and then we can curate our own questions together. Let's say I'm interested to see what my sum of profit by region is. I can either click here because this is a pre-curated question, or I can just type here sum of profit by, imagine I didn't know it was called region and I call it area in my specific department. So I'll just type area. Because we've added it as a synonym, it comes up as a region. So Tableau automatically understood the field name. There we go. Now we have my profit per region shown as a bar chart. Let's say I changed my mind. I want it by state. So I'll iterate on that very easily. And there we go. Tableau automatically understood that because it's a geographic field, it's best visualized as a map, and even a colored map. And we have a very helpful legend. So I can quickly notice that Texas has a lot of profit issues. It's a negative profit. I'm going to iterate on this a little bit more. So let's say I want to see top 10 states by, instead of profit, sales. And there we go. Now we have our top 10 states. So I can keep iterating. So now actually I changed my mind. I'm more interested in bottom 10 states. As you can see, this was very, very easy to do. As someone who if someone doesn't necessarily have a lot of technical experience, they can easily become self-service. They can easily analyze their data using Ask Data and Explain Data and all of these features that we've introduced, which are truly, truly self-service. Now let's look at how you can curate your questions. We'll introduce a question in the date and time section. So let's say I know for sure, I'll add a question. A question that I'd like to add is, what is my sum of profit by order date limit to $20? So here we're going to see the sum of profit limit to $20. Once my internet's working. So it visualized it as a timeline series, a timeline with sum of profit by order dates year with sales at least $20. So anything that's more than $20 is shown here. Let's say you want to change that instead of by year, by quarter. I can keep iterating on that to get to my answers. And I can save this as well. I'll save it in Sales Sandbox and name it Dubai Tag As Data Analysis. Which opens up my Tableau. I can even create a metric, my Tableau web edit, where I can iterate on it even more. Even ask data, explain data is on here. I think with that, I'm done with what's new features. Obviously, there's a lot more features, and I encourage you to go on to Tableau's latest features to check them out because they're super cool. And let me know if you guys have any questions. Hope this was helpful.
Thank you so much for that, Zeinab.
No worries.
We understand that there are a lot of features, and one of the key features, or some of the key features, are the ones that you have shown today.
Yes.
So there are ways you can have the details of all of those, right? In the Tableau website itself.
Yes,
you
exactly.
have all of the details. Mm-hmm.
Yes, if you just type in Tableau newest features, you'll find the page with all the newest features. Also, just saying this to you guys, 2020.3 is going to be awesome. Just wait for it.
Okay, we were having a discussion like in the Tableau user group in LinkedIn. We were checking whether there were any beta testers because we get the early access, right?
Yeah, I know that we get the early access, but I don't know if it's beta testing now available for the customers. I can double check and get back to you.
Yeah, so I personally use the latest features, the latest version as a beta tester. So it is quite exciting. So we are looking forward to that. Hopefully we can expect it in August, September, right?
Yes.
Great.
I can see a few questions.
Yes, please.
I'm just going to go ahead and read them out loud so others can see them as well, and hopefully I can answer them. So the first question is, Ask Data feature is available for all licenses or limited to any specific license? So Ask Data and Explain Data are available for anyone who has a license as an explorer or a creator. The second question is, it's the same question. So the new features discussed so far, are they applicable for all license or any specific license? So for Ask Data, Explain Data, and Metrics, it's for creators and explorers. Relationships is obviously for creators. Set actions and set control, viewers can view it, but the creators and explorers can create it. Is there a plan to include Ask Data in the desktop application, or will it only be for web? Actually, that's a really good question. So it's only available on the web, but there is a very, very easy way to include it in your desktop. I've done it in the past. The way you do that is you just you just take the link, your embedded link for Ask Data, and embed it as a link in your desktop. So it shows up in your desktop as well. Let me try really quickly to send you the link on how you can do that. Just give me a second. Embed.
I believe this was initially done with done by Alex. It is quite interesting.
Who?
Alex Eskensi?
Yeah. So that's the one I'm trying to find.
Yeah.
Just give me 1 second. I'll find it. I know I have it. Oh, it's annoying. I can't find it right now. But yeah, to answer your question, you can do it in desktop as well. The way you do it is you use the embed link for Ask Data and include it in your desktop as in a container.
Yeah, it is quite interesting because it can be using the latest features, some of the show and hide containers.
Yeah.
It can even be that way, which will be hidden, and you can click on that to show the link that will have the Ask Data feature. It is very useful.
Yeah, very, very useful. And it's very easy to do as well. Let me, I'm opening it up now.
Okay.
1 second. Yay. There we go. I'm just going to share my screen. Sorry, I need to log in. Do we have any other questions while I try and bring this up? Ah, it's done. Yay. Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is an example of a dashboard that we've built, and we've embedded Ask Data here. So if I just click here, I can type my questions. What's the average close, for example, by stock name. And keep iterating on that. So you can embed it over here using the embed link. Okay, I don't know why I can't close it, but yeah. Does that answer your question?
Zeinab, can you please hide this item now?
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. So this is how the dashboard would be. You'll have all the interactivity here, right?
Yeah.
Whatever is required as per the standard dashboard functionalities.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have further questions, you can just click on Ask Data and go there.
Exactly.
Great. Okay. That is interesting. That is good. All right. Zeinab, there is one more question. Yeah.
Sure. Any possibilities of including Ask Data for viewer licenses in the latest release? Not that I know of, and I don't think so. The reason being, Ask Data and Explain Data are two features that are meant for those who are explorers, not really viewers. So that's why we're going to keep them for explorers or creators. If you have a viewer that wants to use Ask Data, they can easily convert their license to an explorer and then be able to use Ask Data that way.
Great. Okay, we will. Yeah, we have some more time, so we can wait for more questions. But meanwhile, there is a user group in LinkedIn. So it is Tableau user group Dubai, which has got about 50 users so far, and we share some useful information there, maybe some videos and tutorials on the latest features, the new releases and everything. So it would be great if all the other participants, whoever is not part of that, can join that group. We can have more learning sessions like that, because it's not probably always practical to have these sessions very often. We'll still have these meetings at least once a quarter. But meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can post it there. Other users who are from the same region or who have worked on similar questions as what you have will be able to answer them. Or else we'll definitely get help from Zeinab and the Tableau team as well. Okay. Right. We have finished early, but if you have any other questions, you can type it there or can reach out to any of us at a later stage. Thank you, Zeinab and Bobby, once again for the wonderful presentation and sharing your experiences with us. It was quite helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sriya. Thank you. Thank
We
you,
have
Zeinab.
another question. Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm sure we're going to do a lot more of these sessions. Hopefully 2020.3 comes out. Someone was asking, do you have a YouTube channel?
We do not have it yet, but it's a work in progress. We should probably have it soon.
But there is a YouTube channel for Tableau, and there's a lot of sessions on previous Tableau conferences that I highly recommend you do, especially in these times while we're spending so much time on Netflix. You can watch some of these fun sessions as well.
All right. We saved about 15 minutes of everyone's time now. Okay, you can take a break before going to the next meetings. Thank you everyone for joining. Special thanks to Bobby and Zeinab once again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
You too. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.